All right, happy Friday. If everything goes well, I will see you all again the next time you're in school on Monday. But for today, I have one last video notes episode for you to watch. Today we're going to examine the effect the Industrial Revolution had on the environment. And it's not a good one. This is when humans really start polluting on a global scale that we're still dealing with the effects of today. So same page in your notebook that you've been working on all week, the same way that you skipped a few lines and made child labor a subheading, go ahead at the end of your child labor notes, skip a few lines, make pollution a subtitle. All right, we're going to review from the child labor notes. You should absolutely be able to answer these things. So, what does maimed mean? This is the second time this word has come up this year. Does it mean injured, exhausted, laboring, or severed? So, if you picked A, injured, that is an okay answer, but that is not the best answer. The best answer is D, severed. It means something has been removed from your body. All right, how old were the youngest child laborers? Were they A, 16, B, 14, C, 12, or D, 5? While as we get closer to modern times, people start figuring out how messed up child labor is, and they start raising the age that kids can work. But if we are going back to the early 1800s, when there were no laws about this, the youngest children that would be working would be 5. So your answer is D, 5. Finally, which characteristics made child laborers appealing to business owners? Choose all that apply. So was it that they were A, nimble, B, strong, C, inexpensive, D, obedient, E, small, or F, intelligent? Again, this should be a question that you should feel very confident in answering. The answers are A, nimble. That means that you are able to move your body through small places. B, strong is not correct. We talked about how kids have not developed their adult muscles yet, but because of machines, that doesn't matter. C, inexpensive, absolutely. Factory owners were not paying children very much for their labor. D, obedient. I realize you all might say kids are not going to be obedient, but they would be because, one, their parents are not going to be okay with them losing their job. Their parents are counting on their income. And again, this is basically daycare for their parents. So their parents are not going to be okay with them getting kicked out of their job. Also, they would beat you if you were not doing what was expected. And they would beat you enough that children died. So D, obedient, is going to apply here. E, small. Yes, children can fit into small spaces, and that is good for both factory work and mining. And F, intelligent, is not a correct answer because these kids were not going to school. So they were being used for their bodies, not for their brains. All right, so we're going to look at two different types of pollution that have resulted from the Industrial Revolution. The first one we're going to look at is water. So we already talked about urbanization, and we have cities growing to population levels that we have literally never seen in human history during the 1800s, and they just keep getting bigger today. After these notes are done, if you went and Googled the population of places like Mexico City, Seoul, South Korea, and New York City, they all have tens of millions of people. I think New York City is the smallest out of the three, and they're living in a very small place for that many people. Before they had indoor plumbing, human waste was just being dumped into rivers. We've already talked this year about how most cities are built on rivers because before they had trains, they would travel most by boat. All right, so in addition to the human waste that's being dumped into the rivers, factories are just dumping anything they have left over into rivers, and there's going to be no type of law against that at this point, no clean water laws. So especially once factories burn coal to boil water for steam engines, they're just going to dump what's left over of that coal. It's called coal ash. And we actually have a really big problem with that in North Carolina today because Duke Energy is storing its coal ash that it burned years ago in places that keep contaminating rivers. And so that's been a really big deal for us in North Carolina trying to fix that. All right, so by the 1850s, people are getting sick. They are living in these small spaces. Their water supply is gross, both from waste from factories and from human waste. And we see lots of outbreaks of things like typhoid and cholera in big cities like London and New York. On the left, that is a primary source. That is from London, and that is how people viewed the River Thames, which is the river that goes through London. Again, the sea monster is metaphorical, but that is how people saw that river. They saw it as so gross. The thing could be smelled for miles because it smelled so bad. Because, again, this is where you're dumping your human waste. This is where you might be dumping your corpses if you can't afford a grave. And it's going to be full of waste from factories. And then in that picture, you can see animals that people chose not to eat, too. They just dumped the animal carcasses in there. On the right, we can see contaminated water. This picture was taken in Eastern Europe. And this water is, I think, going to be contaminated with coal ash. And so you can see what that water looks like. And in a lot of communities, this is the water that these people rely on to drink. And so you can see how that is going to cause a problem. It's health problems either way. It's either you're not drinking water or you're drinking that. All right, second pollution we're going to look at is air pollution. So we already talked about coal ash that's being left over from the burned coal and is being dumped into lakes. You also have coal that is going out through the smokestacks. So we're releasing all of this really, really, really thick black smoke from coal. If you've ever seen an old locomotive that we've been talking about, think about how black the smoke coming out of the top of that locomotive is. You may not have seen, I hope you haven't seen, a pure smokestack spitting coal out because that's illegal in the United States today. They have, if they're burning coal, they're going to have all kinds of filtration systems before they actually let any smoke out into the atmosphere because of how terrible coal is for the atmosphere. So what's going to happen is with the heat that is rising, there is going to be ash from the coal that's going to go up with the heat. But it's a solid, so once it gets up into the air and it cools down, it is going to come back down to the earth. And so we have primary sources that you're going to get to read today and tomorrow, or today's Friday, just today, with people talking about how dirty the cities get. Everything they talk about is covered black. They talk about it being like black snow. All right, additionally, this is fun, when coal goes up into the atmosphere, it's going to go into clouds, it's going to have a chemical reaction, it is going to make the water in clouds acidic, and we are going to get something called acid rain. Acid rain is something that's still happening in the United States. It's luckily not something we have to deal with very often here in Charlotte. You're going to see it a lot more often in the Northeast, in places like New York City, Boston, and then also in the Appalachian Mountains. So when I say we see it here in North Carolina, when it happens, it's probably going to be happening in the mountains. So these people are, especially in cities, are going to be breathing in this coal, basically, this coal ash that's up in the air, and it's going to cause all kinds of respiratory problems. It's also going to cause diseases like typhoid, typhus, and cholera, which are all terrible diseases that we've talked about this year. All right, so these are real pictures. And so this picture is of either Manchester or Liverpool. In both cases, those are teams in England you've probably heard of for their soccer teams. But you can see just how black the air is in this picture. This picture was taken in the middle of the day. And so you can see the smokestacks putting the smoke out, and you can imagine what it would be like trying to breathe in those cities. Here's another picture. You can actually, if you look at the bottom left, you can actually see a street like as it looked 150 years ago. You can see a person standing outside of a store down there. But also look at the amount of smokestacks that's being put up into the air. If you all remember a few years ago when we had fires up by Asheville, up in the mountains, we had to wear masks to go outside. At my school, we didn't take kids outside for HAC those days because it was so dangerous to be breathing in the smoke, and that was nothing like you're looking at here. This is going to cause a ton of health problems. So I hope you understand, I hope you see from the pictures just how terrible this pollution was. And today we're still going to be dealing with the effects of this because this is what's causing global warming today. All right, and finally, acid rain. So when acid rain hits forests on the left, that is what a serious acid rainstorm can do. It can completely destroy trees, completely destroy a forest. On the right, you have someone holding up water from a lake after an acid rainstorm. And you can see that it solidified some of the water. And so you have issues with fish dying from this. You have issues with rivers and lakes just being completely ruined from this. So this is something that the United States government has made laws to try to prevent, but it is something that is still happening today. I don't have pictures in the slideshow. I don't know why. I used to show pictures of statues after acid rain, and you can go out and Google that. Google like cement acid rain in Google Images, and you will see statues that literally have these little holes in them. You can see where the acid rain fell and literally melted the cement of the statue. All right, so this is going to be real similar to your child labor assignment. I'm going to have primary sources for you about pollution relating to the Industrial Revolution, both air and water pollution. You are going to read those. You are going to answer some short questions. You are going to submit them on Canvas. I will make them due Monday. And that's it. I should be back Monday, and class will be back to normal. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I know how lit they are. I'm sorry we don't get to do these more often. And I will see you all Monday. Please make sure you have all of your work in. This has been, let's see, you had your DBQ, and you have 2 assignments about the Industrial Revolution in addition to that essay that was due Monday. Please make sure all 4 of those things are turned in for me to grade by the time I come back on Monday. Otherwise, you really are not going to like your grades when you come to school next week. All right, get your stuff done. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.